creation of water, earth, and sky. The heavens are your tabernacle. Glory to the Lord on high. God of wonders beyond our galaxy. You are holy, holy. The universe declares your majesty. You are holy, holy, Lord of heaven and earth. Lord of heaven and earth. Reveal your heart to me, Father. Holy, 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 holy. Well, hey, once again, welcome to Crossroads Church. We're really glad that you're here on Super Bowl Sunday. Take a second, say hi to each other, greet each other, and go ahead and have a seat.
All right. You may be seated. Hey, I want to welcome you this Super Bowl weekend to Crossroads. My name is Rod, and we are glad you're here. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to any of you who are here for the first time. We hope we can get to know you better, and one way to do that is by taking a look at your program. And, this gives me an opportunity to say that, wherever you are, whatever stage of life, wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. In fact, one of the writings in the New Testament called the Book of Galatians in chapter 3, verse 28, it says this: "There is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, Bronco fan nor Seahawk fan, but Christ is all in all." And regardless of your NFL team affiliation, you are welcome here, and we're glad you're here. And as you can see, we are in a series, according to your program, a series called Wiser, where we're taking a look at the book of Proverbs. And the book of Proverbs is a collection of wise sayings, and we're looking at how these apply to our everyday life. And Pastor Dennis Anderson gave a great message on the subject of parenting that you're going to hear in just a couple moments. But one of the thoughts I have is, wouldn't it be great for us to get a window into some of the families here at Crossroads and see how they're doing in their parenting efforts? Let's take a look.
Hello world, here's a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. A whole lot of loving is what we'll be bringing. We'll make you happy. We have a dream, we go traveling together. We spread a little love and then we'll keep moving on. Something always happens whenever we're together. We get a happy feeling when we're singing a song. Traveling along, there's a song that we're singing. Come on, get happy. A whole lot.
Of course, we know that's fiction. We know that would never happen at a family here at Crossroads. Hey, I know we have some of the best fans out here, Bronco fans out here, so I got some great Bronco swag to give away. And we're going to do honor system. First person to yell out the correct answer gets some of these prizes. So here, I'm going to give a question. I'll see how well you know the Broncos here. Okay, whoa, hold on. Okay, 1978, you went to your first Super Bowl, Super Bowl 12, and before that, you beat what team in the AFC Championship to get to the Super Bowl? Oakland Raiders, right here, all the way in the back. Dennis is going to run that out to you. Okay, next question. Next question. In 1997 and 1998, the Denver Broncos won Super Bowls 32 and 33. The head coach was Mike Shanahan. But in 1987, where did he first get his first head coaching job in the NFL? Oakland Raiders, all right. Okay, funny how that is, okay. Now the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, record-setting quarterback, Peyton Manning, what was his, don't just yell out Oakland Raiders. What is the jersey number that he wore when he was at the Tennessee Volunteer? 16, right here. All right, you get a Peyton Manning football. Okay, last question. The quarterback that led the Broncos to their first two Super Bowl victories, again in 32, John Elway, correct, and he's a Stanford grad. But there's another Stanford grad that won two Super Bowls. What's his name and what team did he play for? Right there, Jim Plunk, Oakland Raiders. That's the correct answer. Now, the best thing about all this is seeing all you Bronco fans yell out the word Oakland Raiders. Yeah. So that was the highlight for me. Anyway, okay, now to more serious matters. Okay, now what was true of that video we just saw was that's an actual life group here at Crossroads. And what a life group is, and we have about 50 of them that meet at any given time throughout the week in homes throughout northern Colorado. What a life group is an opportunity for us to make some new friends in a setting with about 10 to 15 people and get to know the Bible a little bit better. And we believe that very strongly. In fact, twice a year we put on what's called a Life Group Connection event, and we have one coming up on Tuesday, February 18th. It'll take place right here in this room from 6:30 to 8 p.m., where you get an opportunity to meet some of the leaders and actually some of the people that will be in your group. You're going to be hearing more about it in ensuing weeks, but we want to encourage you right now to mark your calendar. If you are currently not in a life group, Tuesday, February 18th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And again, it's going to be a great time with us. And also another thing we do here on a regular basis here at Crossroads is we give an opportunity for those of us who call Crossroads their home to give back financially to the work that God is doing here to reach more people and to impact our community. And if you've been reading along in the Proverbs, some of us are reading a chapter a day coinciding with the day of the particular day. You would have read at some point what Proverbs says about generosity. In fact, in Proverbs 22:15, it says that those who are generous will prosper. And the generous heart is something we believe here at Crossroads. And one of the ways we can exercise that generosity is by giving back to God during our services. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, it is good to be here, to worship, to learn more about you, to be with one another. And we also thank you that it's good to be here to give back to what you're doing here in our efforts to see more people reach for you. So with this, God, we commit all of this to you in Christ's name. Amen.
What's really on the couple weeks ago, my wife was talking with our granddaughter, and this is how the conversation went. Lila, you're already 3, and next year, you're gonna be 4. And then when you're 5, you're gonna go to kindergarten. She was thoughtful for a minute, and she said, Nana, will I be driving by then? Kids grow up in a hurry, don't they? I'll bet you all of us in our life have at some point have said, I can't believe how fast life has gone by. And if you're a parent or a grandparent, you are gonna face this situation that you're gonna see on this video right here.
You were so excited to bring her home for the first time. But you wondered if she was always going to cry this much, if she would ever just go to sleep, if she would eventually grow out of this phase. How much longer before she'd let you catch your breath? As she got older, you wondered if you would ever learn to be more patient with her. If you were even fit to be a parent. If you would ever learn to do this right. How much longer before this would get easier? Before she would start listening?
Olive, you can't go to school dressed like that.
You wondered how much longer would she act so independent? When would she quit treating you like an enemy?
Dad, can I spend the night at Megan's tonight?
No is my final.
When would she stop ignoring you and thinking the only thing you were good for was a ride to a friend's house?
Where have you been? You're 2 hours late.
Can't she just grow up and start acting like an
I
adult?
thought of that before you stayed 2 hours past
You
your
guys are
perfect.
the worst parents ever.
Only 2 more years until college.
You wondered, as she prepared to take the next step, was she ready? Did you do enough? Who would protect her now? Would she make smart decisions? Where did all the time go? You wished you were with her more. You missed her already. You wondered, how did it all go by so fast?
Author Gretchen Rubin said, the days are long, but the years are short. You can write that down. I want you to meet my family. Got a picture of my family right here. My wife, Barbara, we have 3 sons, 1 daughter, 2 daughters-in-law, 3 grandkids, and 1 more grandkid on the way. We took that picture up the Poudre River last summer. And we took a picture a few years before that on our family vacation. That's a few years before that. And then a few years before that, this was our family. And a few years before that, this was our family. And a few years before that, this big event happened. Next month, we'll celebrate 34 years of marriage. But that doesn't seem like that long ago. I mean, the time just zipped by. And as I look at our family, and I look into the faces of all our kids, Barbara and I look at each other and we go, how is it that we've experienced so much joy raising this family? I mean, there's nothing more satisfying in our lives and nothing more joy-producing than looking in the faces of our kids and grandkids. But if you look a little closer, especially at me, you're gonna see some gray hair. The floor of our house at times looked like a barber shop, you know, from pulling out your hair. And sort of stress wrinkles there if you look real close. Because there's nothing more difficult and more challenging in life that we've faced than raising this particular family. Because families can create a lot of grief for each of us, and we've faced a lot of grief in our family. We've faced the death of a spouse, the death of 2 parents. Our first baby miscarried. We've faced car wrecks with our kids. We've had police at our door at the house. This was kind of embarrassing, actually. It was when I was first here at Crossroads. I was leading my life group at home, and the police came knocking at the door. I thought for sure they were looking for the neighbor kid. Nope, one of my kids. We've been in court with one of our kids. We've been alienated from our kids and distanced relationally from our kids for long periods of time. We've faced drugs and parties and alcohol with our kids. Our kids have been alienated from God for periods of time. And we faced a lot of grief. In fact, one time when one of our kids was younger, he actually mooned the neighbor lady. Yeah, you laugh. It wasn't so funny then. In fact, a couple years later, our kids got in trouble with the neighbor boy again. And when I asked them about it, they said, Dad, you always take their side. You never stick up for us. So the neighbor lady comes storming across the street to talk to her about the latest conflict. I mooned the neighbor lady. No, I didn't. I remember one day walking to the office of a really good friend, and I just broke down crying, and I said, my family is falling apart, and I have no idea what to do. Proverbs 10:1 says, a wise son or daughter brings joy to his father and mother, but the foolishness of children brings grief to their parents. And while parenting can be fraught with ambushes and roadside bombs, there's nothing that can be more satisfying at times than raising this family. Proverbs 23:25 says, may your father and mother rejoice, and may she who gave you birth be joyful. And at this point in our parenting, Barbara and I can look at each other and go, you know what, there is a great deal of joy, no matter what all that grief was. And our kids are well established in life. They have a strong work and moral ethic. They're creative. They're compassionate. They care about the injustices of the world. They care about each other. They're generous with their money. They're generous with their time. They're generous with their serving. They regularly hang out with each other without us. We like that. And we actually like it when they hang out with us too. They don't mind that. We still have a voice in their lives. We're grateful for that. And we ask them on a regular basis, what do you think I should do here? They're not perfect. We still struggle with them. They struggle with us. But I am one grateful father, and my wife is one grateful mother when it comes to our kids. We're just grateful, and we couldn't be more proud. There's nothing more head-scratching, stomach acid-inducing, grief-producing than parenting. And yet there's nothing more heart-lifting, more heart-expanding than this thing we call parenting. And today I want to talk about two things: what children need from their parents, and secondly, what parents need from their children. How many of you have kids or parents? All right, good. So there's something here for all of you. The first thing that kids need is this: irrational amounts of love. And let me remind you that these proverbs are not promises. They're not guarantees. They're not commandments. They are divine, wise advice, common sense. And the reason we need it is because kids are a moving target. Proverbs 3:12 says, for the Lord corrects those he loves, just as a father corrects the child in whom he delights. So which comes first, the correction or the love and the delight? The love and the delight must come first. In fact, I was reading a section from a child development expert who said that if anywhere in the world, if you grow up and you find a child that's grown up and they fall within the healthy range of a well-adjusted adult, you'll be able to trace back that probably somewhere in this child's past is and he uses this term, a parent that loved this child irrationally. And at the same token, he says that if you look at kids that will become adults that are not quite so well adjusted, they struggle with depression or crime or hyperachievement, he says, I'll bet you could trace it back to the lack of a loving parent. And then he said his conclusion is that for every human being, for us to be normal, we have to have an abnormal or irrational amount of love applied, especially early in our lives. And when we get that, it's just what our heart needs. And let me give you two quick equations for what love means. The first is this: love equals acceptance. You know, a few weeks ago, I talked about the cycle of grace. And the very first movement in that cycle is this idea that we are loved, we are valued, we are significant, we are important simply because we exist. That we're wanted, we're desired. That there's nothing we could do to make our parents love us more. There's nothing we could do to make our parents love us less. Robert Frost said that home is where when you go there, they have to take you in. I want to modify that a little bit. Home is where when you go there, they want to take you in. See, love is the oil that keeps a family running. And if you don't have love, no matter what else you have, education, emulation, vocation, vacation, motivation, maturation, stimulation, stipulation. Without love, all you're going to get is aggravation. That's what it's going to be. I read the story of a mom and dad who had 2 sons. And one night, one son got sick, and they gave him some aspirin and put him to bed. And the next morning, they found him dead of an acute appendicitis. And they were so guilt-ridden. And the dad looked for relief in the bottom of a bottle. And his wife eventually left him with their remaining son. And the dad spiraled downhill, lost his job, lost his house, lost his health, and eventually somebody found him dead in a dingy hotel room. But Ernie grew up a well-adjusted, generous, hardworking young adult. And his friend came to him one day and said to Ernie, said, I know something about your family background, and for the most part, your parents were failures. How did you turn out so well? He said, you know, from the time I can remember to the time I left home, no matter what was going on in my dad's life, every night before I went to sleep, he would come into my room. He would kiss me on the forehead, look me in the eye, and say, I love you. And he said, it wasn't just the words. I knew he meant it. I felt loved. And parents, we can do a lot better than Ernie's parents. We really can. But it illustrates the need in a child's life to know that their parents, the one who brought them into the world, somebody out there thinks this person has value and is important and is accepted and is loved regardless of what's going on in the life around them. That somebody could not love them more, somebody could not love them less. Love equals acceptance. The second equation is love equals time. Lots of it. Here's a letter that a son wrote to his father. He wrote, Dear Dad, I feel that it's time that we talk. Maybe it's better that I write a letter to get the conversation going. I know that you must love me because Mom says that you do, but I wish that I could hear it from you. Do you realize that we have never had lunch or gone to coffee together when it was just the 2 of us? I think it's about time. I know that your job has always been a struggle for you and things have been tough just to make ends meet. You are a very hard worker, Dad, and I respect that. I've also developed a strong work ethic. I got that from you. I realized that growing up, you didn't have time to come to my pole vaulting events because you were on a trip. And when I set the school pole vaulting record, it was the same time as your big project. I've had to forgive you for that, Dad, and I have. Dad, I've carved out time for my wife and my kids, and I don't regret a single minute of it. My children are about to leave home now, and more than anything, I value the time that I have spent with them. I wish we could have had that too. In several years, Dad, I'll be 60, and it's been 8 short years since you passed away. I would still like to get together and spend time with you when we are together in heaven. I feel that we could begin a relationship there. What do you think, Dad? Love, your son. You know, we get one shot at this. We do. We get one shot. And there is no substitute for vast quantities of just time doing normal stuff in our families. And have you ever noticed this? Some of the most significant conversations happen in the cracks of just a lot of time spent together with our kids. So there's nothing our kids need more than acceptance and love. And there's no time to do it other than now. So that's the first thing kids need is irrational amounts of love. Second thing they need is clear and firm boundaries. Little Johnny is going through the grocery checkout line with his mom, and he starts screaming for candy. And to quiet him down, she gives it to him. Little Susie comes home. Little Susie gets up, and she's late to go to school again. And her father screams at her for the umpteenth time, if you don't get ready for school, you're going to walk to school. But she knows her father is never going to make her walk to school. Jimmy blames everybody else for stuff. It's never his fault. It's his teacher's fault, his parents' fault, his dog's fault. It's never his fault. Jennifer is uncomfortable about the way her boyfriend is pressuring her to have sex. But she's afraid that if she doesn't, he's going to dump her and nobody else is going to want to be with her. All those scenarios are the result of blurred boundaries, blurred limits. And some of us grew up in families that had very clear boundaries, and a lot of them, very authoritarian. And if you stepped across the line, the punishment was immediate and severe. Others of us, you might have grown up in a family on the other end of the spectrum. It was lax. You didn't really have parents, you had pals. They didn't want to ever tell you no. They were too afraid that you might not like them. And so you actually grew up being the parent in that family. Some of us, most of us probably are somewhere in the middle of that. Proverbs 3:12 says this, "For the Lord does what? Corrects those he loves, just as a father corrects a child in whom he delights." And C.S. Lewis comments about this proverb right here, and he says, think of it this way. Think of an artist, a true artist. Now she won't spend much time drawing some sort of picture to amuse a child. But if it's truly a work of art, she's going to spend time scraping the paint off 10 times, 20 times, until she gets it just right because she so loves the painting. And C.S. Lewis says if the painting was actually alive, every time it would scrape, it would go, don't do that. And then he makes this insightful comment. He says, when we complain about our sufferings, about our discipline, we are not asking for more love, but less. We are asking God or our parents not to take us so seriously. Proverbs 19:18 says, discipline your children while there is hope. Otherwise, we, the parents, will ruin their lives. And every last bit of research confirms this. And even though these boundaries are family rules, when we make them, even if they're clear, kids are always going to push them. They're going to push back. Dr. Ross Campbell says that only 25% of kids are compliant. You know who I'm talking about here. You know the other 75%? He says they're aggressively rebellious. So, confession time. How many of you at some point of your life made problems for your parents? Yeah, see, it's more than 75%. You guys are aggressively rebellious. Did you know that? That's what he would say. And you want to know why? Because Proverbs 22:5 says, folly is bound up in the heart of a child. Those cherub-like little angels don't come into the world with one scrap of wisdom. It's the parents' responsibility or grandparents to give them emotional, relational, vocational wisdom. It's the responsibility of our parents to teach them that. And one of the best things we can do, and I'll give you 3 principles for establishing clear and firm boundaries or limits in your family. A, establish clear rules. Be intentional about them. Give them some thought. Don't make them up on the spur of a moment out of frustration. Teaching our kids to say thank you helps them understand that gratitude is a positive character trait. Make sure your clear rules are mutual. If there's 2 parents in the family, make sure you agree about what the rules are so the child gets one message. And as kids get older, they can have some input into what the rules are, but parents remain the final authority on the decision for what they are. The rules need to be reasonable. Do they serve a positive function? Are they good for the child? Not just for you, but are they good for the child? And are they spoken? Do they actually know what they are? Unspoken rules are unfair. In other words, it's probably not helpful to tell your kids, hey, I want you to be, your 16-year-old, be home at a reasonable hour. What do they think is reasonable? Yeah, 2 a.m. No, that's not what you mean. So make sure they're spoken, reasonable, mutual, and that you're intentional. That's A. B, establish reasonable consequences, both rewards and corrections. I mean, it's the only way communities and families learn to live together in something besides chaos is, hey, we have reasonable consequences. How many of you have ever felt the pain of breaking a speed limit boundary? Yeah, my last one, $187. That was some pain. I promised myself I am never going to speed in that spot again. Proverbs 24:30-34 says this is how it happens. One day I walked by the fields of an old lazybones. They were overgrown with weeds, thick with thistles, all the fences were broken down. I took a long look and pondered what I saw. The fields preached a sermon to me and I listened. A nap here, a nap there, a day off here, a day off there, sit back, take it easy. You know what comes next? Just this, you can look forward to a dirt poor life with poverty as your permanent house guest. I mean, any farmer knows that if you take too many naps and take too many days off and neglect your farm, you're not going to have any crops. Your farm is going to be a disaster because of your own negligence. Ethan Couch was 16 years old when he got drunk, 3 times the legal limit of an adult, got into a car, smashed into another car, and killed 4 people. The courts gave him 10 years probation. Now, there's a lot of pushback on that, but in the jury, in the trial, psychologist Dick Miller testified for the defense for Ethan that said that he suffered from a condition called affluenza, a condition which his family felt that wealth brought privilege and that there was no rational link, get this, no rational link between behavior and consequences. Really? Those parents are making a train wreck of their kid and other families' lives because they've disconnected behavior from the consequences of the choices. Now let me ask you this. Who committed the crime here? Who committed the crime? And I know that's an extreme example. But our children need to learn that their choices have consequences, and they have to feel the pain of their own disobedience, of violating those rules. And a lot of parents use some sort of restriction when a rule is broken, a timeout, or the loss of the use of a toy, or a vehicle, or a computer, or time with their friends. A 10-minute timeout is probably helpful for a 5-year-old. I heard this. One parent said that they caught their middle schooler smoking a cigarette. They made him eat a carrot, whole carrot right in front of him. They caught him a second time. They made him pick up 100 cigarette butts and read an article on the dangers of smoking. The third time, they made him make a $25 contribution to the American Cancer Society. Consequences. That's what they are. Establish clear and reasonable consequences. And here's C, administer discipline. Dr. Henry Cloud says, part of your little angel's makeup is a criminal mind. She thinks she's powerful enough to avoid the results of her actions. Proverbs 29:17 says, discipline your children, train your children. You'll be glad you did, so will we. They'll turn out delightful to live with. And this is the step where wisdom takes root in a child's life. This is where we've all learned it this way. If you do bad stuff, guess what? Some bad things are going to happen. If you do good stuff, some good things are going to happen. I know it's not a one-to-one correlation, but generally this is the wise way of doing things. And parents, if we don't reinforce, if we don't take this step, if we don't allow our kids to actually suffer the consequences of the choices they make, we nap out on this. We take a day off. When we're going to reap the consequences of that. You know, parenting expert Foster Cline says this: by the time the child is age 3, the child should have learned basic German Shepherd from the parents. When you say come, they come. When you say sit, your child sits. When you say go, they go. When you say no, when you say stay, they obey. Basic German Shepherd. Not 100%, but like it said, by the time a child is 3, and we all know families. We visit households where there's a 5-year-old who does not know basic German Shepherd, and guess who's running the house? Guess who's running the house? Little Susie comes home from school, right? Dad meets her with a school snack. He says to her, how was your day? And she says, I was really good, Daddy. And he says, oh, by the way, I noticed that you didn't make your bed or hang your jammies up this morning. And you know that our agreement was if you don't do your morning chores, there's no TV. So tonight, the TV will be off and you can play games and do your homework and all of that. But Daddy, my favorite TV show is on tonight. And you know I got up late. And all my friends are going to be watching that TV show. They're going to be talking about it tomorrow. Can I not watch TV tomorrow night? Well, honey, you know our agreement was that, and I love your friends and I love you, and I know that soon you're going to learn to make your bed and hang up your jammies. But Daddy, hey honey, I'll help you with your math problems. That's how it goes, right? And if we take a nap here, if we don't reinforce this the first couple times this happens, by the time Susie is 15, it's not going to be jammies. It's going to be young boyfriends. It's going to be automobiles. It's going to be drugs. We can't take a nap here. When I was in grade school, I remember I went over to a friend's house one day and she had $12 silver on her dresser. I thought, man, she's got a lot of those. So I just took one, put it in my pocket, and I went home. Well, my mom saw me with it, and she said, where'd you get that? And she taught us not to lie. And I said, I took it from my friend. And she also taught us not to steal. And so she said, well, here's what you're going to do, Dennis. I'm going to drive you over there, and you're going to take that silver dollar, and you're going to give it to your friend's mother, and you're going to say, I'm sorry. And I said, no, I'm not. And she got in the car, and I got in the car, and we drove 15 miles to my friend's house. I will never forget this. 5 concrete steps up to the front door, right? I had liquid coming out of my body, and it wasn't sweat. And I remember knocking on the door, and Jean Brannigan, I remember it like it's yesterday, comes to the door, and she looks down at me, and I hold up this little silver dollar. I took this, and I'm sorry. And then I ran back to the car. I'm sure my mom had been on the phone with this lady, but I thought, if my mom had napped on this one, if she just overlooked it, I would have become, I don't know, I would have stolen baseball cards from my other friends. Who knows? I would have become an untrustworthy young man. But because my mom gave me a minor course correction very early, it set me on a different trajectory. We cannot fall asleep on this, parents. We've got to administer discipline. Some people ask, well, what about spanking as a form of discipline? Proverbs 13:24 says, whoever spares the rod hates their children. First of all, I just need to be very clear. God would never condone any sort of physical abuse on a child. So that's not what we're talking about here. And although a rod can be used as a tool of correction, the rod in that culture was much bigger. It was a symbol for authority. It was a symbol for the coach or symbol for a teacher. Basically what the verse is saying is, hey, don't be negligent on taking authority. If you don't take authority as a parent, your kids are going to run amok. And that's what it's saying here. Parents need to take authority in a lot of different situations. The Bible doesn't eliminate spanking as a form of correction. And I know there's a range of opinions among parents and parent experts these days. So I'm going to defer to Foster Cline again because I think it's so good. He says that spanking is allowed only as a last resort and only under these conditions. Children are 3 or younger and they violated defiantly or rebelliously one of those German Shepherd rules. Not shenanigans, not just child misbehaving, but defiance and rebellion. He says that's the time to use spanking. He says only use your hand so that you know exactly how much pain you're inflicting. Only if you're not angry, and only in the context of love. Kids need buckets of love. They need barrels of acceptance. They need clearly defined limits with reasonable consequences. And they need the reward or the correction from us as parents or grandparents when they violate one of those rules. And I know you're going, hey Dennis, I've done all that and my kids are still out there a bit. This is wisdom. It's not a formula. Just got to remind us of that. We're living creatures, so are they. They're not machines. But this is the best wisdom the Bible has to offer. That's the first 2 things. And here's the third thing kids need from parents. They need spiritual direction. You know, I reassure myself often with this idea. If each of my children, and now my grandchildren, has a vital, living relationship with Jesus, it doesn't matter what happens in their life. They're going to be fine. They're going to be just fine. Proverbs 1:7, if you signed up for the text message, you got this proverb yesterday on your phone. It says this, start with God. The first step in learning, first step in wisdom, is bowing down to God. Understanding God's role in our lives. And I know we can't force this on our kids, but at some point every human being has to come to the point where they come to their own personal conviction about who Jesus was in our own history and in their lives personally. But I have 2 questions for you if you have kids in your house or grandkids. Here's the first one. If my children or grandchildren follow my example today, how well will they be doing spiritually? If your kids just do what you're doing today, if they adopt the same attitude toward work, toward their friends, toward morals, towards business ethics, the same way you treat your friends, your neighbors, the same way you treat your coworkers, your family, the rest of your family. if they take the same habits that you have of Bible engagement and prayer and church involvement, serving the community, serving the world, if they do exactly what you're doing today, how well will they be doing spiritually? And my point, of course, is it starts with us. It starts with us as parents. And here's the second question. Am I doing all that I can to encourage and nurture their spiritual growth? The church statistician, George Barna, surveys these things, and he says this, that the likelihood of someone becoming a serious follower of Christ is 32% between the ages of 5 and 12, 4% between 13 and 18, and 6% between 19 and above. And while we know that God is not confined to statistics, what it does is it shows the absolute essential priority of getting our kids spiritually involved, especially when they're 12 and younger. It's such a critical age for kids. And if you have kids or grandkids in your life that are that age, man, I hope you won't miss a weekend here. Because we're here to partner with you, parents and grandparents. And we're going to do everything. I told Lane, who's one of our child past directors this morning, I said, I hope this is the best hour of every kid's week, the hour that they're here. I hope that, and that's our goal. And in fact, in a couple of weeks, we're going to come to you with a big challenge about investing and helping raise the priority of kids around here at Crossroads. We're going to do that. And I know that, like I said, there's no guarantees to this. But I watch people around here, and I've noticed there are some young men and women that are absolutely blowing it out of the park. Daniel Henderson, he's up there. He's actually is on our staff now, freshman at CU Boulder. We can forgive him for enrolling in that school, but he's a freshman there, and he's on our staff right now. Last night I asked him, hey, Daniel, when did you start serving around here? He said, when I was a freshman in high school, I began Renna Tech out in the Student Ministries building. I see Emma Wilson was here this morning greeting at the front door. She's a young high school woman. I see a young Carl Gronberg. I saw him packing and going on this trip to Guatemala last summer with our student ministry group. I see Jade Van Osdal, and I see Bailey Entner up here playing guitar. I know Bailey hasn't always been this good. He's learned it here. I mean, these are students, these are young men and women who've been involved here for years. And you know why they're involved? A lot of the reason? You know who's here every weekend? Their parents. Some of them are sitting here today. Their parents are up to their eyeballs around here as well, and they understand the partnership between church and home. And again, no guarantees, but I'll guarantee you, if you don't be involved around here very much, you're on your own. We want to help you. We want to help you, and we can't drive your kids here. Oh, unless you want your 12-year-old driving your Mercedes, you know. You got to bring your kids. And so those are some things that kids need from parents. You know, they need all those things, clear and firm boundaries and rational amounts of love, and they need spiritual direction. I want to finish my talk just quickly with what is one thing that parents most need from their children. And it's this, Proverbs 23:22 says this, listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. And the opposite of that word despise is the word honor. That's the one thing that parents most need from their children is honor. And the word honor is the Hebrew word kavod, which means it's weighty. It's substance. It's the difference between a feather and gold bullion. It has, and what it says is don't ever take your parents lightly. Don't ever take them lightly. The Bible never says, you're going to be hard pressed to find a place where the Bible says to love your parents, trust your parents, be affectionate towards your parents, like your parents. But the fifth commandment is this, honor your parents. It's a brilliant choice of words. Honor your parents. And I can say with statistical certitude that half of all parents are under average. Think about that for a second. You'll get it later. So basically the point is no matter what your parents were like, some of you grew up in very difficult parenting situations. Some of you grew up with great parents. But no matter whether your parents were kind of troublesome or great, it says we must honor our parents. And here I'll give you 4 quick ways to honor your parents. Whatever your culture is, find the appropriate symbols and practice those. A birthday card, an anniversary card, a Christmas present. There are 100 million people in China right now trying to get home to celebrate Chinese New Year simply because they want to honor their families. 100 million people trying planes, trains, and automobiles to get home, simply to honor their parents. That's the first thing. Find those symbols. Second thing is, anytime you can find a positive trait in you that you got from your parents, tell them. Tell them you got it from you. Never underestimate the need of your parents to reproduce themselves in you. Number 3, don't ever give up on a parent's ability to change. Don't stereotype them. They'll never change. My dad is 82 years old. He's still changing. When I'm 82, I hope I'm just like my dad, growing and learning and getting better at this thing. And the fourth thing, and maybe most important, forgive. You must forgive your parents. Some of your parents have passed away. You still hold something against them. And you know what happens? They still have a bitter root deep in your heart. And the only way to get rid of that root is to forgive them. And then you can be free. They don't have to control you in that area of your life anymore. And that's not easy. It's not easy. Because the one who forgives pays. It's just the way it works. And so that's the way it is. And we need to honor our parents. And remember a couple things about that. One is, however we treat our parents is probably the way our kids are going to treat us. They're learning it from us. And this is the other thing is, remember this, your kids are going to pick your nursing home. So, I want to get that a little thought. You know, I've presented some huge challenges to us today, and I know those of you who are in the throes of parenting or grandparenting, you realize this is hard. There's a lot of joy, there's a lot of difficulty. But what I want to say to us is we can do this. We can partner together. As a church, as parents, grandparents, we can do this. This isn't rocket science. Every day, steadily, we could teach our kids right and wrong. We could teach our kids rules. We could help our kids understand there are consequences to our behavior. That's the best we can do. And the rest is sort of up to them. And it's going to take an inordinate amount of love to make this happen. More love than we have. More love than we have to give. And you're going, where am I going to get that love? Well, I'll tell you. A few weeks ago, I got to spend the evening with my grandkids, and we just had a ball. We read books, and we did these big, massive puzzles. Didn't have those in my day. These things are huge. They're fun. And then Lila taught me a new dance. Want to see it? Yeah. Too bad. I'm not going to see it. When I was driving home, I drove into the garage, and this thought came into my mind. I love those grandkids, and I love my kids. If a bus was bearing down on them, I wouldn't hesitate. It wouldn't even be a choice. I would throw myself in front of that bus, give my life, and save theirs. I love them that much. And right when I thought that, God put this thought into my mind. He goes, you know, Dennis, that's the way I love you. And I thought, really? God goes, yeah, really. He said, in fact, if you really think about it, I did throw myself in front of a bus for you. I love you that much. And if you ever wonder, where am I going to get this love? For my parents? For my children? For my family? For my spouse? For my extended family? God goes, hey, I got a big supply. You need it? Come to me. I'll give it to you. Let's pray. Lord, this is a big deal, and yet you entrusted it to us. You gave us the capacity to have kids, and we need wisdom to do this, and we need to get it from each other. That's why we have a church. That's why we have life groups, because we need it from each other. And God, I just want to pray especially for those families right now in this room or listening. There's just a great deal of turmoil in their family. There's some relationship that's in a ditch. They don't know what to do. They're scratching their head. They've done what they can do. They might be about ready to give up. And God, I just pray right now that you would give each of those families a big injection of your love. To help them feel surrounded by your love and your care and your wisdom. And tell them you can do this. You can. Don't give up. I didn't give up on you. Don't give up. Stay with it. Stay with it. Be consistent. And someday. So Lord, we hold out for that because you are a God of hope. In Jesus' name. Amen. before you leave, if you need some prayer for anything, come down here and I'd be happy to pray with you. And the second thing is, there is a lot of parenting wisdom in this church. And one of the best places to meet some of those wise parents is in these life groups. So if you go, you know what, I want to get in on that, just check in with our Next Step people. They'll get you signed up and you can come on the 18th. We'll see ya. Next week we're going to continue our series. And oh, one last thing. Go Broncos, right? Yeah, see ya.
Won't you